All right. What is up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to it. I am here with my good friends, Katie and Brian, and we are about to jam on what it looks like to run an awesome land business, scale that sucker up quickly. I can't wait for you guys to learn how these guys have done so much business so fast. Katie and Brian, thank you for being here. Welcome to the Land Closers Academy. How are we doing
Thank you
today?
so much. We're great. We're super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, sweet. Well, hey, let's go ahead and get started off with some of the basics for people that don't know who you are.
Mhm.
Obviously, Brian, we met a year ago when you came out to one of my masterminds in person, the five or six of us, I think, in a house, getting sweaty and hanging out and talking land. It was great. Ate way too much food. From there was awesome. I got to work with Katie one-on-one where we did a bunch of sales training together. After that, it just blossomed into an awesome friendship where we just get to jam every couple of months, talk biz. Love every excuse I get to talk to you guys. So with that, give us some of the background though, how you guys got started, when you got started, because people need to know how quickly this thing has grown. Whichever one of you wants to jam first, give us the goods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Brian, I will let you take some of this because you were really the inspiration for the business. He did approach me, and I thought that he was absolutely insane. And here we are 2 years later. So, want to tell a
Perfect.
little bit about your story?
Yeah, it was about 2 years, right? To this,
Yeah.
pretty much to
Sept-
this month,
September. Yes.
September of 2023. I
Mhm.
was flipping houses for about 3 years prior to that. We had two kids. I was furloughed. All these things were going on in our lives, and I made house flipping our core business for myself. And I had a partner who lives across the street, still to this day, a neighbor of ours, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, but it was wearing on me, and the money would go out as it does in land flipping as well. But it'd go out, and you
Yeah.
wait and you wait and you wait for it to come back. So I felt like the cash cycle was a lot longer. It wasn't scalable for the area I wanted to be in and the
Yeah.
market that I knew. I listened to a podcast. I heard about land flipping. I dived deep into the weeds of what land flipping is. I had my reservations on, land, things sit on the market, it will never work, as everybody probably does as they first get into this. But then you start being around like-minded people. I joined a group and met Mike Balcom, and we approached him and
It
had
was all
him.
downhill from there. No, I'm just
Yeah,
Mike's
I
good.
knew
Mike's a good
his
Well,
friend of mine.
name.
shout out to Mike.
So all that being said, we reached out to people. We're in a community. We learned a little bit from Mike and how to, build this thing. So 2 years later, we're here today. Katie quit her job 8 months into us running a land business together. She does a little bit more of the sales and the oversight of the business and team members, where I work primarily on the dispo side and engineering. So we joined forces, obviously, and then 8 months later, she left her job, and now we're here 2 years later and making a go of it.
That's awesome. And Katie, before you jump in, I want to ask Brian, can
Mhm.
you share a little bit of your military background as well? Because I find all of the vets that I've worked with and rubbed shoulders with come with a certain set of skills and really good
Mhm.
expectations. Will you just touch on some of your experience in the military?
I went into the military with a lot less discipline than I came out of it. So that's what I was there for.
That's
That's a
usually how
very,
that formula goes, right?
yeah, it's very cliche, but I went in, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and it helped me kind of put my life together. And I got out of that, went into college. So that kind of self-discipline is something that I carried forward, and this tenacious drive to better myself and my life, and wanting more out of everything. So I think that's where I took some of the biggest core skills from the military.
I love it. I love it. Now, Katie,
Mhm.
let's jump into your background. You quit your job 8 months in,
Yes.
which is nuts, but you were doing a bunch of sales and that type of work
Ye-
before you jumped into this. So it's really helped you segue in pretty
Yes.
quickly. Will you speak to that?
Yes, of course. So to go back to Brian, putting this all out in front of me, he just kept pushing me content. Hey, listen to this guy, Ajay. Listen to this sales process. Listen, you can do this. I know you can. I consumed so much content as he did. And then I thought to myself, okay, you know what? I actually think I might be able to do this with the skill set that I already have. Our skill sets are completely different. And it's a really nice balance within our business. There's a whole bunch of things that he does in the business that I honestly wouldn't be good at, that I don't have a ton of interest in, and vice versa. But I was in corporate America 13 years running sales teams as a leader. Started as an individual contributor and then moved up to running about 25 people at a time within sales and recruiting. So a decent sized staff, primarily in the tri-state area. So Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Okay, that's awesome. And for those that don't know, the recruiting industry is kind of brutal, like in the
Very.
it is very cutthroat, high turn. So I feel like you came in this with the right mindset, just knowing what it takes to get a deal done, to get something to the finish line, right? And so, would you
Yes.
speak to some of that experience and like how some of those skills really transferred?
Absolutely. So some of the core things I focus on are fairly traditional, right? So people always talk about systems, process, and people, right?
Yep.
That's what they talk about, but I do it a little differently. It's systems, process, people, and sales.
There we go.
You have to have that
Yep.
as one of the key pillars within your business. If you have the systems, you've got the right processes, you have the foundation, it's all there, you've got the right people on board, but if you can't sell and bring things across the finish line, whether it's on the acquisitions or the disposition side, you're going to struggle.
Totally.
So those are four of the like key pillars that I was almost forced to focus on, right? Within
Yeah,
corporate America, here's
totally.
your 400 KPIs that you have to analyze daily. So being able to take a lot of that and transfer some of those skills over, I was able to work with Brian to create a foundation that worked with us, with sales being a core component.
I love it. And we're going to get deeper in that in a second. We've got about a dozen on here live with us, and we'll get a couple hundred on the replay. If you're watching us here live, will you just comment? Let us know where you are, where you're in from. I see Ryan Pope is on here. He says, "What's up? Thanks for doing these lives." So thank you, Katie and Brian, for joining us here. Guys, let us know where you're in, where you're tuning in from. But Katie, I think it was so fun. So for those that don't know, I met with Brian at a mastermind I held, basically just small group. I do
Yep.
one or two of these every year. And honestly, they're like a major distraction from like the entire business in some ways, because I've got to like market them and sell them. And then we're like in a house for 3 days. So we get super deep in our business, right? This was about a year into your business. And I remember one of my takeaways was like, man, I didn't realize how good I was at sales and sales training in this niche. And a lot of those guys actually pushed me back into coaching in some ways. So Katie, it was awesome when we started working together because you understood sales.
Yeah.
And guys, just so you don't know, we're going to start talking about their numbers in a second, but these guys are crushing it right now. And they've been doing this for 2 years. So it's going to be a lot of fun diving into y'all's business here in a second. So I highly recommend watching this whole thing. Katie, will you speak to the difference in sales conversations from like a recruiting perspective versus as we were talking to these sellers? Because you understood the fundamentals of sales, but there were all these nuances I remember working on together as we were getting y'all ramped up.
Yeah. So I think that the biggest thing for me was that in my role, not just as an individual contributor, but as a leader, my role was so focused on building like long lasting relationships.
Totally.
So people were buying from me because they liked me, they liked my team, they knew that we could deliver, but we had to rinse and repeat that over and over and over again. When you're staffing a call center of 200 agents and you know that 30% of them are going to be gone in the first 2 weeks, you've got to be prepared for that. But it's really about the relationship. So driving around, bringing goodies for the team, going out to lunches, it's a totally different sale. So what I realized very, very quickly, begrudgingly having to listen to my own sales calls prior to passing them over, which I highly recommend. It's very uncomfortable even doing it for yourself, but highly, highly recommend, was that I was too nice.
Totally. And these sellers will walk all over us if you're not, right? So we'll talk more about how you got deeper on that later on this call. I'm going to pivot over to Brian because Brian, I know you handle more of like the ops side of the business. Brian, will you speak to like, where are you guys now? Right? Tell me like, what does the team look like and any numbers you're comfortable sharing about what the business looks like right now?
I want to take one tiny step back and
Sure.
Going back to like where I was in my land or house flipping business and where our business is today. So when you mentioned, obviously what I know what a KPI is, but I didn't know what a KPI was when we were doing this. So our business was fly by the seat of our pants. And if I would have done this land flipping business by myself, it would have been the same way. And I would have been, had these little hits and wins and losses, and a lot more losses probably than wins, and probably a long time spent in the valley of despair. So when I, chose and asked Katie to, do this venture with me, it was because I knew she had that skill set and that integrator mind, where I just charge forward and I stick things on the wall. If it stays, it stays. If it doesn't. So I think that's a lot of testament to her skill set, but also a lot of people that are probably in the land space now as solopreneurs, as we are, do have the benefit, but we do have two small kids that will give you a caveat there, where our time is split in a lot of directions, but we do have two of us working, one working on that integrator mind, and I'm more of that visionary. So the complement does play very well. But I know if I would have done this on my own, I wouldn't be where we are today. So huge
Right.
testament to her, and having that, if you have a partner in general, just being able to think on both sides of your brain, if not.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. You guys are such an awesome duo. I will say one of the comments we just got here on the live is Kristen LeClaire. I've been meaning to introduce you guys. You have to connect with her and John. It's another husband-wife duo. They've got 3 full-time AMs. They are crushing it. I've been working with them all year, and they are doing some really big things. They just launched a funding company too. But anyways,
That's awesome.
y'all need to connect because it's just another husband-wife duo in the space.
Yeah.
Really, really good things. So
Yeah.
sorry, so let's circle back to the original question too now, Brian.
Sure.
So where do things look like today?
Things today, we have 7 team members. So we have somebody that runs our outbound texting. We have somebody, 2 lead managers. We have somebody that helps me with the transaction coordination /dispo/admin, kind of everything all in one. And then we have a couple of cold outreach specialists that help us go through all of our kind of cold leads and answer all inbound calls. So that's been a transition that we've done recently, but we have 7 team members today. Overall numbers, probably hard to say. I could definitely probably look that up in QuickBooks, but at this time, I know last week we did $120,000 of gross profit for the business. So that was a really good month for us. We've had some other good months in there as well. Then we've had a few, lower months where things are sitting on the market a little bit longer and things like that. But we really push those dispo strategies to maximize each month's revenue. And we have a really good, strong pipeline kind of rounding out the year and hopefully into 2026 as well.
That is awesome. That is awesome. 120 grand every week, you said? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, next week as well. We're
wish.
forecasting that.
Hey, you guys are capable of it if anybody is. Seriously, I've watched you guys rock it off. Actually, let's go back in time. I almost want to brag on myself a little bit, if that's okay.
I know where we're going here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to talk about the amount of contracts?
Oh, I would love to. Why don't you tell me, Katie? Because I remember hearing how many leads you guys were pushing, and I was like, interesting, because I always say in a real estate business, when we're focused on scaling acquisitions, there's 2 types of problems. You either have a leads problem or you have a conversion problem. That's it, right? So you either need more leads or have an issue with your leads, or you just need to get better at converting your leads. You guys did not have a leads problem. You were pushing 200 leads a month, if I remember correctly. Why don't you tell us what contracts looked like before and after working together?
Yes. So let's go full disclosure here too, so everybody understands our strategy, because I
Please.
think when you're talking about getting agreements signed,
Gordon, yeah.
3 agreements in a month for somebody who's going to do subdivides or entitlement, that's going to be totally different than if we are pumping out, double closes and that's your model. So just to put it into perspective, our strategy 99% of the time is to take title to the property, improve the land through engineering work, and then resell it on the market. So that is our strategy. Typically, we're looking to buy, as most people, at a discount, right? Or if we're going to go ahead and subdivide it, then we can be way more reasonable. And we know that with the work that we're going to do, we can then get that ROI that we're looking for. There was a point in time, I mean, when we first started, and I was working full time. Brian still had a couple of flip projects going on. He was managing the rental portfolio. We had 2 babies, and I was sliding back and forth across this desk between all computers and monitors. We were trying to do it all ourselves. And if we got, 1 contract signed, maybe 2, like a month, like we were like, okay, Like we're in it to
We're
win it
moving.
here. It's happening. Um, and then we got to a point where having one agreement signed a week was a huge deal. Like that was a milestone for us. And I was just coming in to that with you. We're like, we're seeing consistency. We've started to build out the team. We're gaining a lot of momentum. We have a lot more knowledge than we did
Totally.
previously. Now it's time to elevate this business. And that was working with you was a key component, and it was a mindset shift. I think that that's the most difficult part because the talk tracks are repeatable,
Totally.
right? Understanding your objections, being able to isolate them, but knowing it and hearing it
Yeah,
is the hardest thing. And
totally.
then adjusting that mentality to have the right conversation to, in your words, give yourself the highest chance of getting the agreement signed.
Totally.
So once I started to implement some of those key strategies, and I started to listen more than I spoke on calls, honestly, I was able to have a much higher close ratio. So we consistently now are getting on average 2 to 3 contracts a week signed
A week.
with that strategy, right? So, and that was a game changer because we all know in this business, it's the law of numbers because you get the contract signed and then some fall out. And then
Yep.
you
Totally.
bring them full circle and maybe they didn't end up being great deals in the end.
Totally.
So, yes. So to
That's
give you some
awesome.
numbers, that's essentially, so I think that we increased by, I would say 2.5 to 3 times solid on what we were getting signed
That is
by
awesome.
that shift.
Oh my gosh, you hear that, guys?
Yeah.
2.5 to 3 times in the business, which was just so fun. Because I'll tell you guys too, what I did with you is not how I coach people anymore. Like it was very much, and I told you this, it was one of those like one-off where honestly for me, I needed to get some reps as a coach. So I was like, we're
Mhm.
just gonna drill hard for like,
Yeah.
I think it was like 6 weeks. We went through,
Yep.
it's like we were
Yes.
meeting like twice a week and
Twice a
just
week.
going really, really deep. I would go long on a lot of these calls and we would drill some of this stuff.
Yep.
I remember
Mhm.
too, one of our first, so Katie, we would text all the time. And I would be like, hey, I need at least 3 out of you this week. I still remember the first week you got 3 signed PAs and how
Yeah.
exciting that was. Like I remember jumping
Yeah.
with my wife, like, Katie just got 3 signed PAs. She was like, who's
Yeah.
Katie? And I was like,
Who the heck is that person?
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just been so fun watching you guys grow. And like, I also want to make this really clear, guys, as we continue opening up the kimono in your business. And seriously, guys, we've got almost 20 on here now live. I would really highly recommend staying for this entire thing. If you're catching the replay, watch the whole thing because these guys are doing some really good stuff. One of my favorite things about both of you is number one, you're not afraid to invest in yourselves. Like I remember you early on
No.
saying, like, we set aside a budget every year to be like,
Yeah.
how much are we
We
allocating
do.
towards coaching, masterminds, mentorships, all that kind of stuff, which is amazing. And then number two, you actually implement the advice you get, which is, I
Yes.
know sounds so simple, but you'd be shocked at how many people uh hear something and then don't actually do anything with it, and I watched you
Mhm.
both take something and you're like, oh, got it, and then you just go run with it, right? So
Mhm.
is awesome. Last thing I'll point out before I promise I'll bring it back to some questions is I remember one of our first conversations was actually a culture conversation. If you remember, we had to fire someone within the first
Yeah, we
week
did.
working
Yep.
together.
Mhm.
So it was one of those things, the expression I like to use, addition by subtraction, where I was like, hey, I had to tell you this. You got to fire this gal, and I promise your business will get better immediately after. And it
Yeah,
did because you had
it
so
did.
much
Yeah.
energy from having the right people. And then we were able to bring it up. Right. So, anyways,
Mhm.
super fun. So let's drill down. You talked about the team, Brian. I don't know which one of you would be better suited for this. Will you speak to like what do numbers in the business look like right now from a marketing perspective? Let's start with like how much output are we doing from marketing? I know you guys are mostly texting and you've like dabbled in some cold calling. So will you speak to some of that?
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie. We're probably sending around 100,000 a month.
Including follow-up.
Okay.
Yeah, about 100,000 texts a month. Then we have PPC running in the background as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So those are two main outreach that we get leads from. I will say one other point to where you were going with the other stuff is we've also taken opportunities to pay for coaches and work with people. But when I saw you post that, it was immediately,
That's what I was gonna
there
say.
was no hesitation. So anytime I will say to other people is like, if there's something that you're drawn to that you think will help your business, just do it. I think there's always going to be something there that,
Yeah.
there's a lot of other people doing coaching and things like that. But if you know that this person is the right fit for your business and there are opportunities out there, especially in land all over the place, take the opportunity, help grow your business. Because every time we saw something that maybe multiple times we've approached people to coach us and they've never done a coaching in their life. So we've just found we see somebody that's modeling a business or something the way we like doing things, and we've just reached out to them, and it's been partnerships that we've had and friends that we've made along the way. And a lot of our coaches have never coached before, but they've grown businesses, or they've done sales, or they've done something that we know that we needed to change in our business. So we have texting and we have PPC as our main marketing components right now. Within the 7 employees, handling all the inbound that comes from that. And PPC is a very immediately, you need to react to those. So we have a really good process in place for that. And yeah, that's our main marketing components at the moment.
So can we drill? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Katie.
I was just going to say on top of that, additionally, so we do a lot more cool calling than cold calling. So we're
What does
is that
that
a
mean?
thing? Is that a thing? The leads are qualified. At some point in time, they showed interest. So we have spent a lot of time bringing our outreach specialists, which other people would call them cold callers. I call them, their titles are outreach specialists.
Sure.
And we've really brought that in-house so that we have a ton of manpower with people who at one point in time had responded favorably. And so we've dabbled in the cold calling for specific lists and some special projects, but we do a little bit of cool calling as well. And the only other thing I wanted to add was that aha moment. So we're talking about like taking action, right? So Ajay, you had posted like, hey, I'm interested in a land investor that wants to do some sales training. Brian and I were not together. We both saw you post it separately. And as soon as we got home, we were both like, hey, I got something to talk to you about. Same page. Okay, schedule it. Like, let's go. Let's do it.
At that point anyway.
Yeah.
So
and I'd saved it and like screenshot it to come back to as soon as we got home to discuss.
That is awesome. That makes me so happy. Well, would you say you got an ROI on that investment?
I'd say
yes.
so.
That's awesome. No, I always tell people too, when they start coaching with me, like one of my, and I do not want to make this about myself, but one of my like core tenets in my brain is anyone that works with me, I want them to get like 100x ROAS on investing with me. Obviously, I'm never going to put that in writing because the work is on you to make that happen.
Of course.
But it's like, hey, if you're going to spend $5,000, $10,000, whatever with me, like, let's go multiply that. Otherwise, like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've had coaches and mentors I've worked with that are 10 grand a month, so like, I'm with you guys. I'm not afraid to spend money to grow because we got to pay down our dummy tax. I don't know everything. And the most finite resource we have is time. So if you've got the cash to be able to invest in yourself, like I'm all about paying down that dummy tax as fast as possible. But okay, so let's keep drilling down on y'all's business. He said 100,000 texts a month are kind of the main marketing channel. And that's what I see most investors that are doing at least 100 grand a month in gross profits have at least 100,000 texts a month going, or they've usually got about 7 cold callers on their staff. That's kind of the formula I see if they're going to be just all in on one channel. And so can you walk through what does your lead flow look like? So you've got 100,000 texts going out. How many leads are you guys seeing hitting your desk from that?
Yeah, we're averaging right now, give or take. It depends on the week, and it also depends on the campaign. Obviously, are we doing more initial or more follow up?
Sure.
But typically about 50 leads per week that are being pushed
Okay.
from our texting platform, and then we're usually able to, through our cool calling, we're normally able to book another 10 appointments or so, just from reaching out to people, fielding those calls, etc.
Okay, that's fantastic. And so 50 leads a week. I'm sure you, Katie, are not talking to every single one of those. So will you guys break down, you've got some unique pieces to your sales process in terms of like a lead hits. Walk me through like how far every single person in the process is taking that conversation with the seller.
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of our lead managers has been with us now for over a year. And we're at the point now where through consistent coaching, role plays. I do role plays every single week with my team. For the longest time, when everybody was within their first 6 months or so, I was reviewing their calls. We were doing text and call reviews every single week. So we've started to dial some of that back. And actually, one of my lead managers, she is doing some call reviews for the team and then reporting it back to me. And then I can give her feedback on her coaching, which has been pretty cool to get everybody involved and take some of those, monkeys off my back. I can really
Totally.
only do so much. So we're getting to the point where two of our team members are able to make some of our offers on some of our more traditional properties.
Sure.
I'm handling the majority of the conversations. If it is, something that we're looking to subdivide, it might be a little bit complicated, but they are starting to be able to bring things consistently full circle.
Incredible. Incredible. So you have, are these overseas lead
Yes.
managers that are talking price with your seller?
Yes. Correctly.
Okay.
Yep.
And then how far will they take that? Like, will they go as far as to get a purchase agreement signed, or are they, oh, okay, all right, look
Yes.
at you guys go. Okay.
Yes. They are presenting offers, walking them through the agreement. Exactly. Doing all the follow up
I'd say about 80% of our contracts are done by lead managers, and we've
at
taught
this
them,
point.
Katie has taught them how to go over the contract, do that over the phone. We have the contract ready. When the call is made, the contract goes out. So we've got that process dialed.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Very few people are able to not only learn the skill, but then be able to retrain it,
Teach
right?
it.
Which is always where I say, like, that's where the sauce is. And honestly, Katie, you have been such a mirror to me in some ways as I've watched you grow and say, oh man, like she's doing role play more often than I am sometimes. I remember when you ramped up,
Oh.
I think it was a new lead manager. You
Yeah.
told me you did role play every day for an hour for 2 weeks with
2 weeks.
and that actually became a standard on our team after you had done that. And something I tell people because I watched what that did for you guys, where, a big thing about growing a business is you need to scale the fundamentals, right? And so what you did is you said, hey, let's start strong on the fundamentals. And that was such a light bulb for me, which sounds so silly, but I want you to know, even by watching you guys grow, I have learned on the other end of that. So it's been awesome. As we've
I'm
grown.
so excited to hear that.
Yeah. Totally. No, it's
Yeah.
awesome. You guys are really crushing it. So let's go past a little bit and drill down on y'all's business now. You said you do some improvements like on engineering. For people that don't know what that means, can one of you break that down for us?
Yeah, sure. Brian,
Yeah.
take it away.
Yeah, that's where
Take
I love,
away.
that's what the benefit of having a partner in this business is that, we can do the things that we like, and engineering and the improvement side of things are really what gets me going. Those are the things that kind of light my fire in this business. I love the comping aspect. I like the subdivide underwriting component that we've initiated within our business, and I can talk a little bit about that. And we also do subdivide specific marketing as well. And then on top of that, anything from an engineering standpoint that we need to overcome, whether it be a creek, a ravine, something that needs to be overcome, where a lot of people would pass on that. I like taking a look at those opportunities. And then, engineering work could be septic design. So going a step further and determining how many bedrooms you can get on a property, making it just easier for that potential buyer to kind of see a house on this lot when you can get at least, three bedrooms. And then we do, a lot of lot clearing. We create roads, driveways, and we've done a lot of that kind of stuff to improve the value. And I've heard on podcasts, and maybe you say this too, I was like, pull up on the side of the road and you just look at a field of trees, and it's hard to see the forest through the trees when you're standing there. So we just want to envision that. Bush hogging, all the things that go into improving the land is something we focus on heavily. And every single time we get something under agreement, and we engage that realtor right after we get something under agreement, we do focus heavily on really getting really strong realtors for our dispositions. And we built a marketing campaign around where those realtors focus. So we find the realtor and then we market to those areas heavily. And then we go to them immediately and saying, hey, now we have this under agreement. What can I do to improve the value? If I spent $15,000 on a driveway, if we cleared this lot, if we did a septic design, where all those things pay back, and what's my return on investment? So we look at every property that way. And sometimes there isn't an opportunity to do that, but a lot of times there is, and we try to do that anytime we can.
Incredible. What's I'm so curious now, like I don't know if one deal comes to mind here, but like what's one of like y'all's favorites that you've done in the past year? Does anything come to mind in terms of like either you did not think it was going to happen and you pulled it off, or it was just like a master and this was just like oh,
Oh,
what a relief. Oh, Katie's thinking of something. What do you got? What do you got?
Were you thinking like Ron?
no, I was thinking the how many test pits did we have to 26 or 30 that we had to do?
I think we did
And we just kept
29.
going.
Yeah. I think we did 29 test bits on one property because we knew we had something, a diamond in the rough. We had to get multiple extensions.
Diamond.
And it was a lot of work to get the contract signed. You had to mail the contract in the mail. We had to get it back signed. You know, it was an old school seller. We did 29 test pits and we found one suitable area.
One.
The lot was grandfathered. It was,
How
you
big
know,
was the lot?
everything. That was
23 and a
20.
half acres.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
Yeah.
And
It
you found
was
one suitable spot to build on.
one suitable spot. It was ledge everywhere. It was rock. It was a brutal site, but it was going to be worth a lot of money, and we knew it, and we had it in the right area, and everything was, you know, we just kept persevering through that, and we figured it out.
Wait, so
Either
how did
way.
it play out? Give us the numbers. Don't tease us like this.
I think it
Oh
was
my
a
goodness.
buy for 220, and we
Yeah.
sold it for 395.
Ooh, all right. We love a good
Yeah.
6-figure deal. That's awesome.
Yep.
That was, yes.
Were you going to add something, Katie?
I mean, it took 6 months
Yeah.
to, even in conversations. It took me a couple of months to get her across the finish line to get us under contract. And then it took us another 6 months of extensions just trying to get through the engineering.
Wow.
And a lot of communication with the seller. It's like update after update after update, and we were totally transparent. This is what we're running into. This is literal rock in the ground that we're trying to, you know, figure out. And she was open to that, and she knew that by the time we built that rapport, that we were the only people that were going to work through all of these issues that she was having. She just couldn't do it. You know, she was 70s, 80s years old, lived in a different
Wow.
state. You know, a good avatar of the seller, but you know, just something that she knows she was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on this one.
Quite literally, right?
Quite literally.
Funny enough,
Yeah.
too, we have a comment in here. Phil Webb says, "Wow, y'all do a lot."
We got to do a lot.
Yeah,
I think it's important in this, especially this day and
Yes.
age where there's more competition. There's just more people out there. There's a lot of people sending texts, a lot of people sending mailers, a lot of still surprises on the phone when you pick up the phone yourself, you call them yourself. So I think that kind of, you know, tweaks it a little bit, but you got to do a lot in this business to make it work.
It's true. It's funny too, because you guys joined in 2023, which I almost didn't even want to tell you this and speak this into you, but you joined as the business really started to get harder for a lot of investors that have been doing this. You guys have a ton of friends that have been doing this since 2019, 20, even 2021. I started in 2020, and I remember a time where I could send out 1,000 blind offers. I would get 1 or 2 signed contracts back without talking to anybody, and I would make 20 grand on every single one of those. I look at that now knowing what I know, and I'm like, why was I not sending out like 40,000 mailers a month? Right. But you just like don't know what you
Yeah,
don't
you don't
know.
know.
Right. I didn't have relationships. I didn't know how to raise money. I didn't know any of that thing. And so your mindset is really what stops you. If I had had somebody speak into me like, Ajay, you're getting a 40x ROAS on your money. Like, why are you not spending every dollar you have in this? And I'm like, I thought I was. There were times where I fundraised money on deals. I put all my money into properties instead of marketing, and I didn't know what I was doing, right? But I was still making multiple 6 figures, so it all looked great to like society, but I didn't realize how great this business was. Now, fast forward, it's still a phenomenal business. Don't get me wrong. It just takes work, and I think most people aren't willing to do the work it takes to run a good business and make hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you really have to differentiate yourself now. I mean, we all know what the 4 main objections are.
Yep. But actually, why don't you
But
tell us, Katie, for those that don't know?
everybody with me: price, timing, uncertainty, partner, spouse. We got
Yep.
this.
Yep. There it is.
But even once you get the agreement signed, there is a lot of work to even keep them engaged. Like, you could just completely ghost you and goodbye. But when you are open, honest, and transparent, which that's what we are, we're doing everything we can to make this work, up
Totally.
until the point where it is a bad business decision for our family, for our children, right? Where it doesn't make sense at that point. And if it gets to that point, we can clearly articulate to the seller why. So if I have to reoffer, hey, I've got bad news, right?
There it
If I've
is.
got to reoffer, I'll reoffer. But we do everything that we can control to get people across the finish line. And I think that they trust us because of that. And they go along for the ride when it gets real bumpy.
100%. I always like to say like authenticity shows in your conversations, right? Which is where like I've heard people when they're doing double closings and it's like, oh, what are you going to do with the property? And they're kind of like, well, it just kind of depends. And they like go through all these like roundabout ways rather than like, well, we're either going to buy it or I'm going to work with buying partners and I may market it to find them, right? Like
Right.
even just like a more straightforward approach of like, hey, like I may put this on the MLS, you know?
Mhm.
I have found very few sellers have a real issue with that. If you can attack it head on and like dive in, like some people hear the seller say, well, I'm not interested in that. And they stop there, right? Versus like, well, hey, can I speak to my experience and talk through like, as long as your property's, solid, there shouldn't be an issue here. We do this all the time. I bought and sold hundreds of properties in my past half decade doing this business, and if you can add,
Yeah.
right, because it's a certainty objection, it's a trust objection. So being able to drill past that. But my whole center point here being authenticity shows on this. So could you guys speak to like how you use your authenticity in these conversations to get so many of these across the finish line, from sending, nuts to people to talking to folks that own, I really want y'all to get that
Yes.
deal so bad. So
Yes, we are, and we'll have to talk offline because we're
okay.
working to negotiate some specific terms here.
Oh,
And so yeah, we can noodle into that. But you know what? We had a seller. He's a great guy. Seems very authentic, genuine. He has a ton of knowledge. He knows what he has. And we were very honest with him as to what we would be doing with the property. We were also very honest with him that with what he thought he could do is not an option, because I hit him with facts, not feelings, right? These are facts. These are things that are true, right? um, and he stopped he stopped responding to me. I was like, what? What just happened? But everything was good. You know what? He was in the hospital. He wasn't feeling well. He recently had surgery. And so we went ahead and we sent him a gift. And older gentlemen were like, okay, let's go nuts and dried fruit. And actually, when I spoke with him yesterday and I said, hey, how you feeling? He goes, you know what? I felt so much better after I received that package from you guys.
oh,
And yes, is it a sales tactic? Of course, but I was genuinely concerned about his well-being as a human.
right.
And I think if you can lead with some of that, and if they feel that it is authentic because it is, I think that goes a lot further.
A hundred
Um,
percent. 100%. Being a
so we try and drive that through.
And that's really what sales is. So like you set a point of like, was it a sales tactic? Sure. It's not a bad thing, because sales really is all about like understanding, how does what I do help serve this human? Now, does it serve me too? Yes, that's capitalistic business, whether you love it or not, right? We have a mutual exchange of value here. And because I'm willing to come to you more than other people, that's valuable. You know what I mean? We're making this as easy as we can for folks. And if they've got issues, great, man, I'm going to back off. One of my favorite deals I did this past year was one, I can't remember if I shared this with you. I'm sure it's come up, but I had money that I got into my pipeline July of 2023. And I remember the seller said he wanted like 230, 240 grand. And I looked at it and I was like, I think it's worth $500,000. And so my acquisition manager at the time dropped the ball, and I saw the lead wasn't in our pipeline. I was like, whoa, why did we not get this locked up? And she was like, they like changed their mind. I'm like, okay, there's a gap here, right? And this was before I really understood sales and sales training. But a little bit later, I took that lead back over personally. December, I started talking to him on my personal cell phone. This is still 2023. It took me until January of 2025 for when I finally bought the property from him for 240 grand. We listed on the MLS, got a cash offer for 480 within like 45 days, sold the property, made over 200 grand after everybody was paid, which was nuts, but sometimes it just takes that level of follow up and understanding. I learned about the seller's son being a doctor in Wisconsin and his daughter doing this. And his wife still wanted to keep her driver's license in Florida because she was attached to it, even though they had moved to Virginia because he was a government contractor. So they had to be near DC. And I just learned all these things about his life and why they were so attached to this property. And his brothers hunted on the land. So we had to wait after hunting season. And there were just all these things. So, days after this stuff ends, I'm on the phone, right? And so it's like, okay, well, if this is a timing objection that I can't overcome, you best believe we're setting an appointment for when the timing is no longer an issue, right? So it's all these things of understanding like the core human need of how can I serve this person, right? So anyways, it gets so interesting. Guys that are tuned in with us, because we still have about 20 people here live, start dropping questions in the chat, and I'll ask Katie and Brian towards the end of this. We're going to shift gears, and I want to ask a couple of questions to you guys just about the wisdom you've accumulated over the past 2 years now, which I know probably sounds crazy. We're like, I still feel new in this, but obviously, I mean, you guys are already, mentoring other folks. And Katie, I want to talk about what you're doing on the coaching side even. Before we get there, I want to ask you, like, if you could go back and just like talk to yourselves when you were starting this business, like, what do you wish you knew as you were getting into it 2 years ago? When Brian was like, hey, talk to these people, we're going to flip dirt on the internet, basically, right? Let's go back to that time. What do you wish you knew getting into this business?
That's a great question.
I mean, I wish I would have known anything about land and real estate. It was COVID and I was super pregnant and I was real bored because you're super pregnant and it's COVID. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. Like, hey. I'm like, I'm going to get my real estate license. And I got it and I never did a single transaction. I was like, but you know what? I just wish I would have known more about land in general, and I didn't. And it is what it is. And I had a huge learning curve to overcome. And I still learn so much about, the title and working with real estate attorneys and structuring deals and all of that stuff. And Brian had, a lot more knowledge within that space, but I just wish I would have known more in general. I think that would have helped us progress faster. And then looking back, I just don't think we sent enough marketing in the beginning.
Totally. That's one of the biggest things I see with so many people is, I know a good friend of mine who was in this when he first joined the inner circle and I audited his metrics. He was like, dude, I'm just like, no, I'm getting 1 to 3 deals and I don't know how to break out of it. And I was like, 1 to 3 deals a month. And I was like, well, like, how much marketing are you doing? He's like, 10,000 texts every month. And I'm like, okay, you need to 10x that. He's like, what? You need to jack that up. You don't have enough leads to get deals right.
Correct.
It's not 2020. And he was very coachable and very receptive, and he's grown his business really well because of it. But same question for you, Brian. What do you wish you knew as you were jumping into this?
I was racking my brain while you guys were talking, trying to find, I think I wish I would have known how to look at deals differently. I think we probably passed on a lot of things that were either we were afraid of a large purchase price, right? But those deals, as we just talked about quite a bit, it just takes a lot more rapport, and those people are a little bit more sophisticated. They know what they have. They generally know what it's worth. But if you can look at it through a lens of, a subdivide or different opportunities or creating something out of nothing, like we just bought a landlocked deal, and I would never have done this 2 years ago. We bought a landlocked deal. This is a cool story. I came in and my underwriter kicked it out, or Comper kicked it out, and I said, wait a second, this is a lakefront property. There could be something here. South Carolina, you can force access. So if you can just think of these uniquely and figuring out, hey, I'll take an opportunity, even landlocked opportunities in states that you can get access to, and maybe structuring a contract until you get that. There's a lot of things that people aren't doing in that, and made my brain go crazy with this one. But we bought it we saw it. You can't double close in South Carolina. You can't wholesale in South Carolina. So you have to literally close on the property and then you can sell it once you get the signed deed. So we bought it. We had a realtor in the area that canvassed the area to try to see if somebody would give us access. Along the way, he found somebody that wanted to buy it. So I said, you know what, I'm going to close on this thing. 1 day later, after we closed, we got the signed contract. We bought it for $40,000 and we sold it for $110,000 within this last week. So that was a $59,000 profit for us on something that I just would not have looked at even 6 months ago that way. So I think as you evolve in this space, or in general, if you can evolve quicker, to look at deals more objectively or uniquely. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Totally. It's funny you say that. I find people don't realize like your skills just stack and become more valuable the more reps you get and the longer you're in the game.
Yeah.
Like I have a deal, I'm JVing with another investor right now. He brought it to me, and it was similar story. It was 80 acres in Arkansas, and it was just this gorgeous property, right? I looked at the comps, and there were a ton of these size properties just flying off the shelf. Hunting land in Arkansas just crushes for whatever reason. And so I'm looking at this, it's landlocked, and I cannot find an easement. I was digging through, old deed records. I've learned a lot on the deed side because of the curative title work that we're doing. It's a whole thing. We couldn't find anything. So what we did is we just cold called all the neighbors, right? So now we've got sales skills that we can pair on this. And one of them just decided to give us an easement for 10 grand. So we could skip the lawsuit, and we just paid the guy 10 grand, got an easement. And now this property that we were able to buy for 40K, get a 10 grand easement in. We just started the listing. I want to say is it like 150 or 169 or something like that. So it's just on the market, but it's getting traction, And it's one of those things where it's like I wouldn't have even thought. I would have just thrown that out of my CRM a couple years ago, right? Versus like, okay, let's dive in. So interesting. I'm gonna ask a similar question that's a little bit different. I had somebody ask me this. I had Logan Fulmer ask me this on a podcast, and it like hit me to my core. It was what piece of life advice do you wish you could tell yourself when you were 16 years old? Which like crazy, I know, is crazy to think about. I remember, I'll share this with you guys while you think, because I didn't prep you with this, but I'm younger just in general, especially as a real estate investor. I'm still in my late 20s, but age 16, you're just angsty and uncomfortable and insecure about everything. And you always wonder, I think everybody thinks they're going to do big things in life, or at least a lot of us at this level now always knew we were going to accomplish a lot. But man, it's such a time of fear at the same time. And, it's so simple, but I'm getting emotional even thinking about it. I wish I could speak into myself at 16 and just say like, it's going to be okay. Like, that's the piece that comes out too of like, you're going to figure it out, and like, to have someone just instill that confidence in you at that age would have been so valuable. But I'm getting emotional thinking about it again. It was such a good question when I got hit with it. So I'm curious what comes to mind for you guys, and what would you want to impart with yourselves?
I think for me personally, it'd be to surround yourself with people doing the things that you aspire to do. Probably 16, you're running in your little circles, and you're a kid, you don't really know what the world really is at that point.
Totally.
But nowadays at 16, when I was 16, we didn't have access to everything. So I sound like a boomer or something like that. But back then there was none of this.
We're not getting any younger. I can tell you that.
I'm a part of this group called Action Academy. It's 450 members, all these like-minded people trying to leave their jobs and make a better life for themselves, create this family, lifestyle that, we're now creating. We can obviously, we're leaving in 5 days to go Uruguay for 3 months for our kids to go to school there. So we just didn't realize that was even possible. But I think if you surround yourself with those people, that's generally going to energize you, rub off on you, get ideas, get your mind working. So that would be what I would tell myself is break out of your circles and find those people that are doing the things that you want to be doing, or just surround yourself with those interesting people, and you probably go a lot further, a lot quicker.
That's great. That's great. It's also like, I just want to add to that, Brian, because it's so wise of, if you're in circles of people that don't prioritize exercise, you won't either. If you're in circles with people, I was with a buddy of mine at a mastermind last month, and we were talking numbers in our business, and this is my first year where I feel confident we'll hit that, really 7 figures net mark. And he was like, are you bragging or complaining? Is the question he would get from Grant Cardone, and he like imparted it to me. And it was like, I'm complaining. We got to go, right? We got to grow, and it's this funny thing. But when you spend time with people versus like, man, when I chop it up with some of my old high school buddies, they're always like, man, you're doing big things. You're crushing it. And I'm like, I'm just getting started, y'all. We got another like 60 years in this game. You know what I mean? So it's so crazy what happens when you surround yourself with different people, Brian. Such a good point. Same question for you, Katie.
I was going to say something similar, honestly. I would have told myself to think bigger, because like you're meant for more. Like you're meant for more than what path you may have thought, was the norm. For me, I'd always pictured myself, and this is silly to say, but 16, that was a long time ago for me. So I envisioned like like having a briefcase with a bun on my head and being in a blazer. And like,
Yeah.
that was my vision for myself. I still have a similar path, right? With being in sales and being in that type of role, but like, that was essentially what I thought that I was meant for. So think bigger. I do want to touch on, this weekend, Brian and I are leaving on Sunday for 3 months, and we're moving to Uruguay. We're moving to South America with our kids, and we're putting our kids in world school, and they and we are just going to have experiences that if I asked my 16-year-old self if I would ever be running a land investing company with my husband and we were going to take a trip around the world to go to school, I would have
Yeah.
thought I was absolutely nuts. Because that's what that wasn't meant for me. I didn't think that big. I didn't think big enough.
Right.
So I would tell myself to do that.
Think
Do it
bigger and
sooner.
I love it. And those pieces of advice go hand in hand. I'm sure you guys have had good people speak a lot of that stuff into you. So
Yeah, for
that is
sure.
awesome. That is awesome. Okay, let's transition real quick to Katie, because obviously you've grown so fast, and it's because you've got such a strength for fundamentals. Brian, not excluding you here, but I know I want to segue into the fact that Katie, I know you've been doing some coaching with people, right?
I
And I
have.
just want to like touch on it. Like, what's going on? Who out here, if they're looking for somebody to work
Yeah.
with, like who's your avatar of somebody to work with? Why don't you speak to it? Let's get you a little bit of free promo on here.
Sure. Thank you. I do. So I started about 7 or 8 months ago, working with people one-on-one. So it's all customizable. I meet you where you're at. So you're not sort of joining a program that I have. It's all based upon where your business is today or lack thereof business.
Sure.
So I have worked with people who knew absolutely nothing about land investing and thought it seemed like something they might be good at, and we built their business from ground zero. And then I work with some folks that have full teams and they're doing their marketing and they're just not where they want to be today. So we focus on sort of some of the four main pillars that we were talking about, which is systems, people, process, and sales. And then aside from the individual one-on-one coaching, the role play calls that I host every week with my team, I open up to anybody that I'm working
Oh,
with as
that's so
well.
cool. Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome. I love that. And guys, like I will tell you, I don't do what Katie does. I respectfully, if you're brand new, you should not work with me. It's not my bread and butter. I think there
Yeah.
was a season for it. And so it is such an opportunity to get to work with somebody like Katie. And honestly, you want somebody who like more recently was new because they remember what it was like. Whereas like me being 5 years into this at this point, I just have so much less empathy for somebody that's brand new. A lot of people I work with have been doing this for 12
Yeah.
to 18 months at a minimum, or have leads or know how to turn on leads or ready to scale it up. So it's a different avatar, right? But having somebody like you that's more recently been a newbie and also understands the intricacies of running a business where you can get to 7-figure gross profit weeks, not every week, but hey, we have one, let's
Yeah.
celebrate, right? You guys are doing
Yes.
things. So
Yeah.
that is awesome. Out of curiosity, how can people get a hold of you if they want to? I know I'm typically supposed to ask that at the very end, but I'll go ahead and do it right now. What's the best way to holler at you, Katie?
Yeah,
They want to reach
absolutely.
out.
Either Instagram at Patriot Plots, or it's Katie, Katie at patriotplots.com.
Perfect. That's awesome. I'm gonna peek through a couple of these questions in the chat here. We got some good people in Adolfo's here. What's up, man? David Van Steenkist said, "How are those push-ups coming along, Ajay?" He came to an event. I led some
How many
push-ups.
push-ups can you do?
How many
Oh, here
push-ups?
we go. Here we go. Here we go.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. I've not tried to max out anytime recently. I'll tell you a funny story. Brian, we did our in-person mastermind. One of the guys we did it with was Alan Quintero. He texted me the other day out of the blue. Alan's become a very good friend of mine. We've done business together. I've coached some of his team. It's been awesome. He hits me up and says, "Where is it?" He DMs me on Instagram, "Do 25 push-ups." And I was like, "Dude, I'm at a Dave's Hot Chicken right now. Like, it'd be kind of weird if I did some push-ups." But I was with my sales guy and I said, "You know what? Fine." And so I dropped down on a bench and actually did 25 push-ups for him.
That's so great.
It's so silly.
Prioritize the pump.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, I'm expecting a video back, and he sent one back. So, Alan, if you watch this, I love you, brother. It's so fun just doing life with good people. But Brian, I've not tried to max out in a while. I'd tell you more than 25 is all I know, man.
There you go. There you go.
But it's great. How many push-ups can you do? You probably have like 3,000 in the belt being
Oh, thousands in the belt. I don't even know the total. What did I do, Katie? We had a little escapade at our house one night, and it turned into a push-up contest. So I think I think I did like 57.
Wow.
57 or something like that.
No breaks.
No breaks, just straight.
Here we go. 57, that's a lot, man. I don't know if I could hit 57. I think I'd cap out somewhere between 35 and 45. Like my arms would start shaking, my form would get sloppy. Somewhere in the middle of there, But
there you go.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm tuning through these questions. Mehmet says, "What up from Turkey?" Awesome. Hey, Garrett Hall's here in a mastermind with these two, and Katie's my coach. They are both rock stars.
What's up, Garrett?
Garrett's the man.
Love Garrett.
Jim's asking what forms of marketing you're using. They had mentioned earlier in this, PPC and mostly text message marketing are the big things there, Jim. You might hop on earlier on. We break down a lot of that stuff. This question says, did they have a float plane? I'm wondering if that was particular to one of the properties, because I don't know what that means. You?
Float plane, maybe the landlocked property with the waterfront, perhaps.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. We figured we can get an easement.
Okay.
Easier.
Hey, Joe and Pradeep are on here. Great conversation, Ajay, Katie, and Brian. How do you keep the seller engaged until closing? That's a great question. So when you get somebody under contract, how are you keeping them engaged? What's that cadence looking like? Especially we do like 90 to 180 day closings sometimes, right? So what's that looking like?
Yeah, that is a great question. So we have a transition of hands. So as soon as the agreement is signed, they are going to receive essentially a welcome email, like, congratulations on the sale of your land. Have a couple questions for you. And that automatically comes from our transaction coordinator. Then Brian and I are on copy. So there's sort of that transition. And then, Brian does a really good job working with Nick. They have consistent, I think you guys are meeting 3 times a week now. They'll run through every single property that we have on Dispo, and then they provide weekly updates as needed to those sellers. Kind of depends on who and how complicated it may be. If it's a bigger project, then I'll go ahead and give them a call and just ensure they understand everything that's happening from agreement to closing, timeframes, the work that needs to be done, etc. So it's a matter of, do I need to get involved and take that next step to also be involved in those conversations? Or is it a little bit more traditional and, he can run with that? But we try to ensure that we've got communication every week with those sellers.
That's fantastic. Anything to add there, Brian?
No, I think I do. I think there's you can definitely lose sellers. There could be a backup situation or something where they feel uncomfortable about the transaction if you're not communicating with them whatsoever. If you leave them in the dark throughout the whole process and you're expecting the title company to be the one that's, communicating, 9 times out of 10, they're not. So I copy them on title emails when it makes sense, and other times I leave them off, but we try to communicate them at least on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, especially if there's a perk test or something that's happened that we want to inform them about.
Okay. Got it. That's great. Roy asked, what's the Instagram again? @PatriotPlots. Is that right?
Yep.
We'll drop it in the chat here too for people that are watching the replay and stuff later. If you're catching this on YouTube, I'll try to have Kaylee put it in the show notes there too. But we're about at the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of y'all's time. You guys have any other words of wisdom you want to impart? Any other thoughts? Anything we missed you feel like we should have talked about?
No, I think.
Go ahead.
I think that for us, we've relied heavily on realtors. I mean, we take title and we sell these. So I just put a big emphasis on finding the best realtors in the area, whether it be land stats, whether it be land.com, people specific to land. And we just relied so heavily on them. They are boots on the ground. They've allowed us to overcome those due diligence items. They give us, clear and concise, valuations of the land. So, and then we build that business kind of around them. So I think for us, that's been a major component. I think a lot of people are doing it, but we spend the extra time and effort to find the best of the best in that area. And then we'll continue to use them, hopefully multiple times going forward. So I don't know, that's been a little, not a secret sauce per se, but it's something that we pride ourselves in finding one of the best set of agents in that area. And then we'll stick there for a while.
That's fantastic. Good realtors are worth their weight in gold. Bad realtors
absolutely
cut so freaking fast.
Yep. So. And we've learned our lesson. So it's definitely been a learning experience for us too.
Totally. Totally. Katie, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, even in the last 2 years that we've been doing this business is always evolving. So you need to evolve too. When it's time to pivot, you got to pivot and you just have to take action.
100%. Take action, make offers, sling deals, find buyers, cash out, make your money, sell now, cry later, make it happen. So I love it, guys. I love it. This has been so valuable. Thank you for being willing to come on. Please enjoy your 3 months in Uruguay.
Uruguay, yes.
Forget me. Feel free to reach out if y'all need anything. But seriously, thank you so much for coming on and being willing to share with the group here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ajay.
Sweet. Everybody, give a thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.